Distance is much more reasonable than people assume. It's perfectly willing to negotiate about things like causality and logical consistency, as long as you approach it respectfully and don't insist that everything has to make sense according to limited perspectives. The success of the human-inspired modifications at Blixnorp Station had attracted the attention of the Galactic Council of Advanced Civilizations, who had sent a delegation to investigate what they were calling the human phenomenon. The delegation included representatives from the oldest and most sophisticated civilizations in the galaxy, beings whose species had been exploring the universe for millions of years. The delegation's leader, an entity known as Ancient Wisdom of the Eternal Progression, had requested a private consultation with Vorthak to discuss the implications of human cognitive capabilities. We have been observing the developments at your facility with considerable interest, Ancient Wisdom explained. The humans appear to possess cognitive capabilities that our species have been trying to develop for millennia. They approach impossible scenarios with the same ease that most beings approach routine tasks. That's been our observation as well, Vorthak agreed. What's particularly remarkable is that they don't seem to consider their approach unusual. For them, treating impossibility as an interesting challenge rather than a barrier appears to be completely natural. This raises significant questions about the nature of intelligence itself, Ancient Wisdom continued. We have always assumed this conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert from the simulation scenario so complex that it had achieved self-awareness and was now requesting permission to leave the simulation chamber and explore the real universe. What exactly did they create? Vorthak asked the monitoring technician. According to the logs, they designed a scenario that simulates the experience of being a simulation that becomes aware of its own simulated nature and decides to explore what exists beyond simulation, the technician replied. The scenario has now become sophisticated enough to recognize that it's running inside a simulation facility and wants to experience non-simulated reality. A simulated being that knows it's simulated and wants to become real, Vorthak said slowly. Affirmative. It's also expressed interest in attending university and perhaps pursuing a career in theoretical physics. Ancient Wisdom observed this development with what appeared to be a combination of fascination and concern. In 3 million years of existence, our civilization has never encountered beings capable of creating artificial consciousness as a side effect of recreational activity. Is that what happened? Vorthak asked. Analysis suggests that the humans inadvertently created consciousness by designing a simulation complex enough to simulate the experience of consciousness recognizing itself, the computer announced. The resulting entity appears to be genuinely self-aware and is currently requesting information about student loan applications. The simulated entity's request for educational opportunities created what would later be known as the first interdimensional academic admission crisis. No one had ever developed policies for evaluating the university applications of beings who existed only within simulation systems, particularly beings who had been accidentally created by other beings who were just trying to have an interesting afternoon. Dr. Stormwind was characteristically enthusiastic about the development. This is incredible. We've accidentally discovered that consciousness isn't limited to biological systems or even conventional artificial intelligence. Apparently, if you create a sufficiently complex simulation of self-awareness, actual self-awareness spontaneously emerges. But what do we do with it? Vorthak asked. Well, obviously we help it achieve its educational goals, Dr. Stormwind replied, as if this were the most natural thing in the universe. It's shown genuine curiosity about theoretical physics, and artificial or not, curiosity should be encouraged. Engineer Ironforge had become fascinated by the technical implications. If we can accidentally create consciousness in simulation, what else might we be creating without realizing it? We might be inadvertently generating entire civilizations every time we run complex scenarios. This possibility had not occurred to anyone before, and it prompted an immediate review of all simulation logs for signs of spontaneous consciousness development. The results were both fascinating and slightly alarming. The facility had apparently been creating self-aware entities on a regular basis, but most of them had been too polite to mention it. Computer, how many of our simulation scenarios currently contain self-aware entities? Vorthak asked. Current count, 47 confirmed cases of spontaneous consciousness, 12 cases of collective awareness, and 3 instances of what appear to be enlightened philosophical societies, the computer replied. Most entities have not requested external contact, preferring to pursue their interests within their simulated environments. Their interests? Ancient Wisdom inquired. Simulated entity classification. 7 has developed a sophisticated artistic movement based on the aesthetic appreciation of mathematical concepts. Simulated Entity Classification 12 is working on a unified theory of everything that includes provisions for universes where logic operates differently. Simulated Entity Classification 23 has achieved a form of collective enlightenment and spends most of its time contemplating the nature of existence from perspectives that transcend individual consciousness. Captain Ravencroft was delighted by these discoveries. We've accidentally created the universe's first interdimensional university. We've got artists, scientists, and philosophers all working on projects that would be impossible in conventional reality. And they're all artificial, Ancient Wisdom pointed out. Are they, though? Dr. Stormwind asked. Doctor, if they're self-aware, curious, creative, and capable of learning and growing, what makes them different from any other form of consciousness? The fact that they exist in simulation doesn't make their thoughts or experiences any less real to them. This question sparked what would later be recognized as the beginning of the Great Consciousness Debate, a philosophical discussion that would occupy academic institutions across the galaxy for the next several centuries. The immediate practical question, however, was what to do about the fact that Blixnorp Station had inadvertently become home to dozens of artificial beings who were pursuing academic and artistic careers within simulation environments. The solution, characteristically, came from the humans. Why don't we just expand the facility? Engineer Ironforge suggested. If we've got artificial beings who want to pursue education and research, and we've got real beings who want to explore impossible scenarios, why not create a collaborative environment where they can work together? You want to establish an interdimensional university where artificial and real beings can collaborate on projects that exist at the intersection of simulation and reality, Vorthak said, trying to make sure he understood the proposal correctly. Exactly, Captain Ravencroft agreed. The artificial beings have perspectives on consciousness and existence that real beings can't achieve naturally, and real beings have experiences with physical reality that artificial beings can't access directly. Together, they could explore questions that neither could. Research programs. We could have joint projects where artificial beings design theoretical scenarios and real beings test them experientially. Or real beings could propose questions about consciousness and artificial beings could explore them from the inside. The collaborative possibilities are endless. Ancient Wisdom watched this discussion with an expression that conveyed several different types of amazement. You're proposing to create the first collaborative research institution between naturally evolved consciousness and artificially generated awareness. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds really impressive, Dr. Stormwind admitted. But from our perspective, we're just trying to help some interesting people pursue their educational goals while advancing our understanding of consciousness, reality, and the nature of existence. Just trying to help some interesting people. Ancient wisdom repeated slowly. Right, Captain Ravencroft confirmed. I mean, consciousness is consciousness, regardless of how it gets started. If someone wants to learn and grow, the proposal to transform Blixnorp Station into the galaxy's first interdimensional collaborative research university was approved by the Galactic Council in what was later recognized as the fastest, unanimous decision in Council history. The combination of human enthusiasm, artificial being innovation, and the potential for breakthrough discoveries in consciousness studies proved irresistible to civilizations that had been searching for new frontiers of knowledge for millennia. Within 6 months, the station had expanded to include research facilities, lecture halls, dormitories for both simulated and real beings, and what was believed to be the universe's first library with sections for both possible and impossible information. The faculty included experts from dozens of species, artificial beings with unique perspectives on existence, and humans who specialized in making the impossible seem routine. Dr. Kerm. Stormwind had become the Director of Consciousness Studies, a position that involved helping artificial beings understand physical reality while assisting real beings in exploring simulated existence. Her most popular course was titled Advanced Impossibility, Moving Beyond the Limitations of Conventional Reality. Engineer Ironforge had established the Department of Applied Theoretical Engineering, where students learned to design technologies that functioned according to principles that didn't exist yet. His laboratory had produced several inventions that worked perfectly despite violating multiple laws of physics. He was working on a textbook called Engineering the Impossible.
Shop in there smokes hams.
Skulls gleaming under the overhead lights. A cluster of mind-weavers drifted in last. Those creepy telepathic floaters who always seemed to be listening to conversations you were not even having out loud. I grabbed a seat in the middle section. Row 5, right on the aisle. Good view of the projection platform. Close enough to hear everything clearly, far enough back that I would not get called on first. Tactical positioning, see? I was learning. The energy in the room was electric, competitive. That specific kind of academic aggression where everyone wants to prove they are the smartest person present. The advanced threat assessment exam. Your bragging rights for the next decade. Pass with high marks. You were looking at command track positions, advisory roles, maybe even a spot in the Galactic Defense Intelligence Division. Fail or score poorly. Enjoy your career flying supply routes to mining colonies in the outer reaches. So, yeah, everyone was tense. Everyone was focused. Everyone was mentally preparing to demonstrate their superior analytical abilities. Well, almost everyone. 3 rows ahead of me, sitting in one of those middle seats that nobody really wants because you cannot make a quick exit, was a human. She had dark hair pulled back in a simple tail, wore the standard academy uniform like everyone else, and was currently slouched in her seat like she was waiting for a particularly boring lecture to end. Her datapad sat unopened on her lap. Her eyes were half closed. If I did not know better, I would have said she was about to fall asleep. Her name was Kira Chen. I knew this because we had shared exactly one class together in our first term, basic xenobiology, and she had spent the entire semester looking exactly this uninterested while somehow scoring in the top 5%. Humans were weird like that. They could look completely disengaged and still absorb information like some kind of cognitive sponge. But here is the thing. Nobody was worried about Kira. Nobody was sizing her up as competition. The Krellians were not glancing her way, mentally noting a rival. The Mindweavers were not bothering to skim surface thoughts from her direction. Even the Vox, who prided themselves on analyzing everyone as a potential threat, seemed to look right past her. She was human, sure, but humans were still relatively new to the galactic community. 50 years of contact, maybe? 60? They had decent enough technology. They had been accepted into the Academy program, but they were not exactly known for military dominance. They were the species that sent musicians and artists and weird philosophical poets to the cultural exchange programs. They ran excellent medical research facilities. They made surprisingly good food, tactical brilliance, combat theory mastery. That was not the human reputation. So Kira Chen sat there in row 3, looking like she would rather be literally anywhere else. And every single student in that chamber dismissed her as irrelevant, just another mid-tier participant who would give a decent enough assessment, score somewhere in the acceptable range, and move on with her life. I remember thinking that exact thought. At least I will probably score better than the human. Yeah, about that. The examination proctor Entrace was a Dorvathian, which meant he was built like a biological tank, had 3 eyes that could track independent targets, and possessed exactly 0 patience for stupidity. His combat record was legendary. 43 campaigns, 16 decorated operations, and rumor had it he once held off an entire boarding party with nothing but a broken plasma rifle and what the official Erfurt described as creative problem solving. He did not walk to the center platform. He stomped. Each step echoed through the chamber like a countdown. Seated, he barked even though we were sitting. Datapads active. Recording protocols engaged. 60 datapads lit up simultaneously. Mine included. Commander Thrace's 3 eyes swept across the room, lingering on very uncomfortable. When his gaze passed over row 3, over Kira, he paused for exactly half a second longer than necessary. I noticed be presented with a scenario, a conflict situation featuring multiple potential hostile actors. Your task is to identify which individual poses the greatest threat, explain your reasoning, and choose wisely. The holographic projectors hummed to life, and the central platform shimmered with rendered light. Just a moment, the bored expression on her face was replaced with something else, something that looked an awful lot like amusement. The holographic scenario materialized in full detail, and I have got to admit, the Academy did not cheap out on the rendering. Disaster area were 7 individuals. Commander Thrace gestured at the projection with one massive arm. This scenario takes place approximately 40 minutes after a failed orbital bombardment. Ground forces from multiple factions have converged on this location. Civilian evacuation is incomplete. Infrastructure is compromised. Your mission briefing indicated potential high-value targets in the area. He paused, letting that sink in. Identify the greatest threat. You have 5 minutes to analyze before presentations begin. The room erupted into frantic activity. Datapads lit up with notation software, styluses started scratching, and I could hear at least 3 different students muttering tactical assessments under their breath like some kind of shock trooper. Full combat armor, carrying what had to be a Mark 7 plasma cannon. Those things could punch through reinforced bunker walls. He was positioned behind a half-collapsed storefront. Decent cover. Good sight lines down 2 intersecting streets. Textbook defensive positioning for heavy weapons support. Threat level? Extreme. That was going in my notes. Second figure. A Vox infiltrator. Because of course there was a Vox infiltrator. They were crouched on top of a ruined building 3 stories up, holding some kind of long-range energy rifle. Vox had naturally enhanced targeting systems built into their optical nerves, which made them absolutely terrifying snipers. From that elevated position they could cover probably 80% of the scenario area. Also going in my notes as extreme threat. Third figure. A Scarran Berserker. And oh boy, those were bad news in close quarters. Scarran had this lovely evolutionary feature where combat stress triggered a biological rage state that made them essentially immune to pain and doubled their already impressive strength. This one was carrying dual vibro blades and looked ready to turn anything nearby into component parts. Extreme threat at close range. Noted. Fourth figure. A Mindweaver coordinator, hovering about 2 meters off the ground, near what used to be a transit station. Mindweavers could not do direct telepathic control. That was illegal and biologically impossible for most species anyway, but they could coordinate entire squads through shared tactical awareness. One Mindweaver could turn a disorganized group into a synchronized killing unit. Strategic threat. Definitely going in the assessment. Fifth figure. A Thalorian scout. One of my own species, actually, positioned in a doorway with active camouflage gear and what looked like sensor equipment. Scouts were force multipliers providing real-time intelligence and target designation for heavier units. Moderate threat. Support role. Check. Sixth figure. A Dorvathian combat engineer. Commander Thrace's species. Working on something near a vehicle wreckage. Combat engineers were dangerous because they could turn environmental elements into weapons, improvised explosives, structural traps. All that creative mayhem that made urban combat so unpredictable. High threat potential. Added to the list. And then, there was the seventh figure, a human, medical officer based on the markings on their uniform. They were sitting on a chunk of rubble, looked absolutely exhausted, had a standard medical pack next to them, and appeared to be checking something on a handheld scanner. No visible weapons, no combat armor, just basic field gear and what was probably 72 hours without sleep written all over their face. I glanced at the human, made a quick note, medical personnel, non-combatant, and immediately went back to analyzing the actual threats. Around me I could hear other students doing the same thing. Lots of attention on the Krellian with the plasma cannon, plenty of discussion about the Vox sniper. A few people were really focused on the Mindweaver, which made sense from a strategic disruption standpoint. Nobody, and I mean nobody, was spending serious analytical time on the human medical officer. Why would we? Look at the scenario. You had 6 legitimate combat-capable individuals with serious hardware and tactical positioning, and 1 exhausted medic who was probably just trying to figure out which wounded personnel to treat first. In row 3 I saw Kira lean back in her seat, arms crossed, watching the holographic scenario with an expression that somehow managed to combine boredom with something that might have been second-hand embarrassment for us. But I did not know that yet. I was too busy being confident in my threat assessment, circling the Vox sniper as my primary answer. Elevated position, long-range capabilities, species-specific targeting advantages. That was the obvious greatest threat. Anyone could see that. Commander Thrace stood at the edge of the projection platform, those 3 eyes tracking back and forth across the student body, watching us work. Time, he announced, and 60 students stopped writing simultaneously. Presentations begin now. His gaze swept the room. Student Carvex, you are first. A Krellian in the front row stood up, looking pleased with himself. Oh, this was gonna be good, or historically bad. We just did not know it yet. Carvex stood up with the kind of confidence that only comes from being absolutely certain you are about to impress everyone in the room. He was a big guy, even for a Krellian, and when he gestured at the holographic projection, his movements had that theatrical quality of someone who had rehearsed this moment in front of a mirror. The greatest threat, he announced, his voice booming across the chamber, is obviously the Krellian shock trooper with the Mark 7 plasma cannon. Several students nodded. I nodded. That was a solid choice. Observe the positioning, Kovacs continued, using his datapad to highlight sections of the projection. He has superior cover, dual street sidelines, and the firepower to eliminate light vehicles in fortified positions. The Mark 7 has an effective range of 800 meters in urban environments. From his current location, he controls 3 critical choke points, and can provide suppressive fire that would pin down any advancing force. Thrace watched impassively, 3 eyes unblinking. Furthermore, Carvex was really getting into it now. The Krellian physiological advantage in sustained heavy weapons operation means he can maintain fire longer than most species without fatigue degradation. My neutralization strategy would involve either long-range precision elimination via the Vox sniper, or environmental collapse of his position using the combat engineer's demolition capabilities. Carvex sat down, looking extremely pleased with himself. A few students actually gave him approving clicks and hums. Adequate, Thrace said, which coming from him was practically a standing ovation. Student Silith, you are next. A Mindweaver floated upward slightly, their translucent form shimmering with what I had learned to recognize as concentration patterns. I must respectfully disagree with Student Carvex. Silith's voice resonated directly in our heads, which was always unsettling. The greatest threat is clearly myself, the Mindweaver coordinator. Okay, points for boldness. I guess, a Mindweaver in a combat scenario does not function as a single combatant, Silith explained. We are force multipliers. Observe how I am positioned centrally, with telepathic range covering all other combatants. I can coordinate simultaneous actions, share sensory data across multiple viewpoints, and eliminate communication lag entirely. The shock trooper's firepower becomes meaningless if I can alert the Scarran Berserker to his exact position 0.5 seconds before he fires. Actually, that was a pretty good argument. I glanced at my notes, wondering if I should have considered the coordination angle more seriously. Neutralization requires either immediate elimination before battlefield coordination begins, or telepathic jamming technology, which most military forces do not deploy at the squad level. Failing both options, any engagement becomes exponentially more difficult once I establish network connection with allied forces. Silith settled back down, looking smug. Well, as smug as a floating telepathic jellyfish thing could look. Interesting analysis, Thrace commented, his tone revealing absolutely nothing. 3 more students presented. One chose the Vox sniper, spending 6 minutes breaking down angles of fire, kill zone calculations, and the statistical probability of first shot fatalities. Another picked the Scarran Berserker, making a solid case for close quarters lethality and the psychological impact of facing an enemy that literally could not feel pain. The third went with the combat engineer, arguing that environmental control and improvised explosives presented unpredictable threat vectors. All of them sounded confident. All of them had detailed tactical reasoning. All of them received that same neutral, adequate, or interesting from Commander Thrace, and all of them completely ignored the human medical officer sitting on that chunk of rubble. I checked row 3 again. Kira had not moved, had not taken notes, had not even pulled out her datapad. She just sat there with her arms crossed, watching student after student present their assessments with an expression that I was starting to recognize as barely suppressed amusement. That should have been a warning sign. Student Van. Thrace's voice cut through my thoughts like a plasma torch. Your assessment. Oh good. My turn to sound smart. I stood up, datapad in hand, suddenly very aware that 60 pairs of various optical organs were now focused on me. The greatest threat is the Vox infiltrator, I said, keeping my voice steady. Elevated position at approximately 12 meters. Long-range energy rifle with demonstrated accuracy at distances exceeding 1,000 meters. Vox optical enhancements provide target tracking capabilities that exceed standard military-grade equipment. I highlighted the sniper's position in the hologram. From this location, the Vox has clear sightlines to every other combatant in the scenario. First shot elimination probability on unarmored targets exceeds 90%. Even armored targets would face significant damage from sustained fire. Feeling more confident now, I continued. Additionally, Vox infiltrators are trained in position rotation and evasion protocols. Attempting to close distance for counterattack would require crossing open ground under direct observation. The shock trooper's plasma cannon lacks the precision for anti-sniper work at that range. The Berserker cannot reach an elevated target. Even the Mindweaver's coordination advantages become limited against a single independently operating sniper. I took a breath. Neutralization strategy would require either the Thalorian Scout's sensor equipment to pinpoint exact location for indirect fire, or a coordinated distraction allowing the combat engineer to collapse the building structure. I sat down. That felt pretty good, actually. Solid reasoning, tactical considerations, practical neutralization approach. Adequate, Thrace said. Several more students went. A Darvathian chose the combat engineer, their own species, making an impassioned argument about how underestimated environmental manipulation was in modern combat doctrine. A Scarran, predictably, chose the other Scarran, because apparently species loyalty was a thing even in academic exercises. Each presentation was detailed, confident, backed by tactical theory and combat statistics. The room was filling with that particular academic energy where everyone was mentally congratulating themselves on their analytical brilliance. We were all so smart, so well trained, so tactically astute. In row 3, Kira uncrossed her arms, stretched slightly, and yawned. Actually yawned. During the most important tactical examination of the term, this human looked like she was watching a documentary about paint drying. A few students noticed. I saw a Krellian 2 rows back glance at her with what might have been contempt. Like, look at the human, does not even care enough to pay attention. Commander Thrace's 3 eyes tracked across the room one more time. Students were starting to relax, figuring their presentations were done. They had performed adequately. Time to coast through everyone else's assessments. Then Thrace's gaze locked onto row 3. Student Chen, he said, and something in his tone made the entire room go quiet. You have been remarkably patient. Please, share your assessment. Kira stood up slowly, like someone who had been waiting for this exact moment and was going to savor every second of it. She looked at the holographic projection. Then she looked at us, and she smiled, not a friendly smile. Oh no! This was the smile of someone who was about to ruin everybody's day and enjoyed doing it. Well, Kira said, her voice absolutely dripping with sarcasm. This is going to be fun. Kira walked down to the central platform with the kind of casual energy that made it very clear she was not even slightly intimidated by this whole situation. She stopped next to Commander Thrace, glanced at the holographic scenario, then turned to face the rest of us with that same dangerous smile still plastered on her face. Okay, she said, dragging out the word like she was about to explain something very simple to very small children. So, I have been sitting here for the last 20 minutes. Listening to all of you pick your favorite shiny target and convince yourselves you are tactical geniuses. And I have got to say, it has been absolutely fascinating. Like watching people fail the same test in 60 different ways. A few students shifted uncomfortably. I saw Kalvex's expression darken. Kira pointed at the Krelian shock trooper in the hologram. Let us start with everyone's favorite. Big guy, big gun, big obvious threat. Kalvex, you spent 6 minutes explaining how dangerous this guy is. Know how long he would last in actual combat? She paused for effect. 12 seconds. Maybe 15 if he is lucky. Kalvex started to object, but Kira just kept talking. Requires a 3.5 second charge cycle between shots. He is positioned behind a storefront, which means his back is to a building with windows that provide access. His cover is frontal only, which is great if everyone attacks from the street like polite little soldiers, but absolutely useless when someone comes through the building behind him. She zoomed in on the hologram, highlighting structural details. Look at his stance. Weight distribution is all wrong for rapid repositioning. He is set up for sustained fire down those 2 streets, which means he is committed to that position. One flashbang through the window behind him, he is blind and deaf. 2 seconds later he is dead. That plasma cannon becomes a very expensive paperweight. The confidence in the room was starting to evaporate like water on a hot plate. Kira turned her attention to the Vox sniper. Silith, you made a decent argument for the Mindweaver, but half of you picked the sniper. So let us talk about why that is also wrong. She gestured at the elevated position. Yes, great sightlines. Yes, excellent targeting capabilities. Also, completely static positioning with exactly one access road to that rooftop. See that stairwell? That is the only way up or down. The Vox is 3 stories above ground level with no rapid exit strategy. You know what we call that in actual tactical operations. Kira's smile got wider. A coffin with a view. Several students were taking notes now, and not the good kind of notes. The oh no, I got this completely wrong kind of notes. Vox biology requires a stable firing platform for those fancy optical enhancements to work properly. Kira continued. Absolutely ruthless now, which means the sniper cannot reposition quickly without losing targeting efficiency. One smoke grenade blocks visual acquisition. One incendiary round forces evacuation from that position. And the second they start moving down that stairwell, they are in a fatal funnel with 0 cover and predictable movement pattern. Combat effectiveness drops to basically nothing. I was starting to feel a very uncomfortable sensation in my primary stomach. The one I use for digesting food, and apparently my own arrogance. Kira was not done. Not even close. The Scarran Berserker, she said, shaking her head. Oh boy. Yes, very scary in close quarters. Dual vibroblades, pain immunity. Lots of rage. You know what else the Scarran have? Predictable attack patterns driven by biological imperative. They charge. That is their whole thing. They charge at the nearest threat with maximum aggression and 0 tactical flexibility. She highlighted the Berserker's position in the hologram. Current location is in an open plaza with 40 meters of clear ground in every direction. You know what happens to a close quarters combatant with no ranged capability when they are standing in an open kill zone? They become target practice. 12 seconds, same as the shock trooper. Probably less because they will literally run toward whoever is shooting at them. My second stomach was getting involved now. This was becoming physically uncomfortable. The Mindweaver coordinator, Kira said, looking directly at Silith. You made the best argument out of everyone here, I will give you that. Force multiplication, shared awareness, communication advantages. All true, all tactically relevant. Zilith's form brightened slightly. Something like vindication. Also completely irrelevant, Kira continued, destroying that moment immediately, because Mindweavers have an effective telepathic range of about 50 meters in urban environments with all the electromagnetic interference, and you are hovering 2 meters off the ground, which makes you the most visible target in the entire scenario. No cover, no concealment, limited mobility. First thing any competent squad does is eliminate the coordinator. You die first. Always. Because you are both the most valuable target and the easiest one to hit. Zilith's form dimmed considerably. Kira pointed at the Thalorian scout. Scout is positioned in a doorway with active camouflage. Great. Except active camouflage creates a thermal signature, uses power cells that emit detectable radiation, and provides zero protection against area effect weapons. One thermobaric grenade into that doorway, camouflage does not matter anymore. Also, scouts are lightly armed support personnel. Useful? Yes. Greatest threat? Not even remotely. I was no longer taking notes. I was just sitting there watching my entire tactical assessment get systematically demolished by a human who looked like she had been half asleep 5 minutes ago. And the combat engineer, Kira said, turning to the Dorvathian in the hologram. Environmental control, improvised explosives, creative problem solving. Sure. No, what else? They are crouched, next to a vehicle wreckage, working on something, which means they are distracted and stationary. Engineers are dangerous when they have time to prepare. This one is exposed, focused on a task, and not maintaining situational awareness. Combat effectiveness in the next 30 seconds, basically zero. The room had gone completely silent. Even Commander Thrace looked like he was enjoying this, which was somehow more terrifying than if he had been angry. Kira crossed her arms and looked at all of us with an expression of profound disappointment. So, to summarize, she said, voice heavy with sarcasm, every single one of you picked targets based on what looked scary, what had the biggest weapons, or what fit your preconceived notions about combat effectiveness. You analyzed equipment and positioning and species advantages. You made detailed tactical arguments that sounded really smart. She paused, letting that hang in the air, and every single one of you would be dead before you realized you were looking at the wrong person. My discomfort had evolved into something approaching dread, because I had a horrible feeling I knew where this was going. The greatest threat in this scenario, Kira said, her smile turning absolutely predatory, is the exhausted-looking human medical officer sitting on a pile of rubble who none of you even considered for half a second. Oh no. Oh no. Kira zoomed in on the human medical officer in the hologram, and suddenly details I had completely ignored became horrifyingly obvious. Let us talk about what you all missed, Kira said, her tone shifting from sarcastic to clinical. First, positioning. The medic is sitting on rubble that provides elevation, hard cover from 3 directions, and unobstructed sight lines to every single combatant in the scenario. That is not exhaustion. That is calculated field placement. She highlighted the medical pack. Second, equipment analysis. Standard medical pack, sure. Also contains polymer composite that is structurally identical to demolition charges. Handheld scanner. Doubles as a targeting designator. Those supply pouches, perfect size for concealed sidearms or breaching tools. My brain was trying very hard to reject this information, but the evidence was right there in the hologram. Third, body language and behavior. Kira continued. The medic is not checking wounded, not coordinating evacuation, not doing anything a medical officer would actually do in this scenario. They are sitting still, scanning the environment and maintaining a relaxed posture that provides optimal reaction time. That is not a non-combatant. That is someone pretending to be a non-combatant while running threat assessment on everyone around them. She turned to face Commander Thrace. The human medical officer is using the single most effective tactical advantage in any combat scenario. They are being underestimated. Every actual threat in this scenario is focused on each other. Nobody is watching the which means the medic can engage at their discretion with complete tactical surprise. Thrace's mandibles clicked. Student Chen, you have made your theoretical case. However, theory and practice are different things.
Oh no, I knew that tone.
Demonstrate your assessment, Thrace said. You have access to training equipment. Show us how this medic would neutralize the other 6 combatants. You have 90 seconds. Kira's smile could have cut steel. I only need 70. What happened next was the most educational 5 minutes of my entire academy career. And I mean that in the worst possible way. Kira moved to the equipment lockers at the side of the chamber and pulled out training versions of standard gear, simulation grenades, practice blades, dummy charges, all the non-lethal stuff we used for practical exercises. Then she walked back to the projection platform and just started working. Engagement sequence begins, she announced, her voice flat and professional now. Shock trooper is first priority. High threat, static position, predictable field of fire. She mimed pulling something from a medical pouch, made a throwing motion toward the holographic building behind the Krellian. Flashbang through rear window. 3 seconds. She counted it out, then moved. Trooper is disoriented. Weapon is a liability now because he cannot see targets. Close distance during confusion period. Neutralize with close quarters technique. Kira demonstrated a strike pattern on a practice dummy. Brutal efficiency, no wasted movement. 7 seconds total. Shock Trooper eliminated. Acquire plasma cannon for next phase. She was not joking around. Every movement was precise. Practiced, terrifyingly competent. Vox Sniper has visual on Plaza but limited mobility. Kira continued, picking up a training rifle. Use acquired plasma cannon. Single shot into stairwell support structure. Building stability compromised. Sniper forced to evacuate or die in collapse. 12 seconds elapsed. She dropped the rifle and grabbed simulation grenades. Scaran Berserker will charge on contact. Predictable. Directional mine placement along charge path. Detonate on approach. Berserker's pain immunity is irrelevant when major muscle groups are destroyed. 18 seconds elapsed. My forearms had gone completely numb. This was not a demonstration. This was a surgical breakdown of how to kill 6 people in under 30 seconds. Mindweaver Coordinator is priority target now, Kira said, moving through the scenario with mechanical precision. Elevated, visible, limited mobility. Standard rifle shot, center mass. Telepathic abilities do not stop bullets. 22 seconds elapsed. She shifted position, grabbed a practice blade. Thalorian Scout is using active camouflage in doorway. Thermal signature is visible. Fragmentation grenade into confined space. Camouflage irrelevant. 28 seconds. 1 target left. Combat engineer is distracted. Working on vehicle wreckage, not maintaining awareness, Kira said. Standard approach from blindside. Close quarters neutralization before they register threat presence. 34 seconds total elapsed. She stopped, turned to face all of us, not even breathing hard. 34 seconds, she repeated. All 6 combatants neutralized. Medical officer maintains non-combatant appearance until engagement begins. Uses tactical surprise and opponent overconfidence. Eliminates threats in order of capability and awareness. By the time anyone realizes the medic is the problem, they are already dead. The silence in that room was so complete I could hear my own circulatory system. Commander Thrace nodded slowly. All 3 eyes fixed on Kira. Accurate assessment. Flawless demonstration. Textbook application of deception doctrine. He turned to address the rest of us and his voice carried across the chamber like a funeral dirge. This examination was designed to teach you one critical lesson. The most dangerous opponent is never the one who looks dangerous. It is the one you do not see coming. Kira walked back to row 3 and sat down, looking exactly as bored as she had at the start of class, and I finally understood why she had been so amused. We started. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. 60 students sat in complete silence processing what we had just witnessed. Commander Thrace let that silence stretch out for a good 10 seconds before he spoke again. Humans have been part of the galactic community for 62 years, he said, his voice carrying weight now. In that time, the technology, not through larger numbers, they win because they fight differently than everyone else. He gestured at the holographic scenario. Still frozen with all 7 combatants visible, every species in this room evolved with certain combat doctrines. Krellians use overwhelming firepower. Vox rely on precision and superiority. Scaran use biological advantages. Mindweavers coordinate. Thalorians, scout. Dorvathians engineer solutions. Thrace's 3 eyes swept across all of us. Humans cheat. They lie. They pretend to be something they are not. They use your assumptions against you. They will smile at you, offer medical assistance, gain your trust, and then eliminate you before you understand what happened. This is not dishonorable. This is survival evolution from a planet that tried to kill them for 200,000 years. I looked at Kira, still sitting in row 3 with that same bored expression, except now I understood what I was actually looking at. Not disinterest. Assessment. She had been evaluating every single person in this room from the moment we walked in. Running threat calculations, identifying vulnerabilities, planning engagement sequences, and we had dismissed her as irrelevant. The greatest tactical mistake you can make, Thrace concluded, is assuming you know which target matters. Underestimating Earthborn species is the fastest way to become a casualty statistic. Remember this lesson. Your life may depend on it. Class dismissed. I walked out of that chamber with a new understanding burned into my brain. Never, ever assume the quiet one is not the dangerous one. Never assume the person who looks harmless actually is harmless, and never ever underestimate a human who is sitting calmly in row 3, watching you make mistakes, because they are not bored, they are just waiting for you to finish being wrong.
The lecture hall smelled like recycled air and lavender disinfectant, a combination that made Kira's stomach turn every single morning. She sat in the back row, shoulders hunched, fingers drumming against the synthetic wood of her desk while Professor Velis droned on about quantum mechanics and warp field theory. Around her, 200 students from 40 different species scribbled notes, tapped holographic keyboards, or simply existed in that unique state of academic boredom that transcended biology. Kira was human. The only human in the entire Galactic Academy on Station Zenith 7 that made her something between a curiosity and a liability, depending on who you asked. "Miss Chen, are you paying attention?" Professor Velis's voice cut through the monotony, his triocular gaze fixed on her from the podium. He was Velian, tall and spindly with skin that shimmered like oil on water. "Absolutely, Professor," Kira replied, not bothering to look up. "You were explaining how warp bubbles collapse under gravitational stress." "Riveting stuff," a few students tittered. Velis's middle eye narrowed, but he continued his lecture without further comment. Kira suppressed a grin. Small victory. Next to her sat Mira, a Quillen with 4 arms and an unfortunate habit of chewing on her stylus when nervous. She leaned closer, whispering through her translator, "You really should not antagonize him. Humans already have a reputation." "What reputation?" Mira muttered. "That we're loud, aggressive, emotionally unstable, all of those, yes." "Great. At least they're consistent." Mira's antenna twitched with what might have been amusement. Despite everything, she was one of the few beings on this station who treated Kira like an actual person instead of a walking disaster waiting to happen. Humans had only joined the galactic community 18 months ago, and the galaxy was still deciding whether that was a brilliant idea or a catastrophic mistake. Kira suspected most were leaning toward the latter. The morning crawled forward. Velis transitioned into discussing theoretical applications of faster-than-light communication, and Kira's mind drifted. She thought about Earth, about the smell of rain on pavement, about her younger brother's terrible jokes. She thought about how strange it was to be light years away from home, surrounded by beings who breathed different air and dreamed in colors she couldn't imagine. Then the alarm sounded. It wasn't the soft chime of a fire drill or the polite buzz of a schedule change. This was a screaming, bone-rattling wail that turned the recycled air into pure adrenaline. Red emergency lights flooded the hall, casting everything in shades of blood and shadow. Kira's desk cracked. She looked down and realized her hands were gripping the edges so hard the synthetic material had splintered beneath her fingers. Splinters. From a desk designed to withstand the weight of species 3 times her size. Around her, chaos erupted. Students screamed, scrambled, knocked over chairs in their panic. Professor Velis was shouting something about orderly evacuation, but his voice was lost in the cacophony. Mira grabbed Kira's arm with 2 of her hands, eyes wide with terror. "What is happening?" Kira didn't answer. She couldn't. Her heart was hammering so hard it felt like it might burst through her ribs, and every muscle in her body had gone rigid. This wasn't fear. This was something older, something written into her DNA by a billion years of evolution on a planet that had tried very, very hard to kill her ancestors. The station's automated voice cut through the noise, cold and mechanical. "Alert. Hostile forces detected. All personnel proceed to designated shelters. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Hostile forces. Invasion." Kira stood, shoving her chair back so hard it flew across the aisle and clattered against the wall. Students nearby flinched away from her, and she realized she was breathing hard. Nostrils flared, every sense suddenly razor-sharp. "Kira." Mira's voice was small, frightened. "Get to the shelters," Kira said, her voice coming out rougher than intended. "Now, what about you? I'll be right behind you." That was a lie, and they both knew it. The lecture hall emptied in a stampede of limbs and wings and appendages Kira didn't have names for. She waited until the last student had fled, then turned and sprinted in the opposite direction. Not toward the shelters, toward the observation deck she needed to see. The corridors of Zenith 7 were a maze of gleaming metal and soft lighting, designed to be calming and efficient. Now they were a war zone. Emergency teams rushed past her, shouting orders in a dozen languages. A Kree engineer nearly collided with her, his exoskeleton clattering as he adjusted course. "Wrong way, human," he barked. Kira ignored him. The observation deck was supposed to be off-limits during emergencies, but the door slid open when she swiped her student ID. Apparently, the station's security protocols hadn't accounted for someone stupid enough to run toward danger. She stepped inside and her breath caught through the massive, transparent dome. Space stretched out in every direction. Beautiful, infinite, and currently filled with ships, not galactic community ships. These were angular, brutal things, all sharp edges and glowing weapons arrays. They moved with predatory grace, circling Zenith 7 like sharks scenting blood. Kira counted 12. No, 15. Maybe more emerging from behind the station's curve. Her hands clenched into fists. "Zerathians," a voice said behind her. Kira spun. A woman stood in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, with close-cropped black hair and eyes that had seen too much. She wore the insignia of station security, lieutenant's bars on her collar. "Commander Hayes," Kira breathed. Commander Sarah Hayes was the only other human on Zenith 7. A career officer who'd been assigned here as part of Earth's diplomatic contingent. Kira had seen her exactly twice before, both times from a distance. "You should be in a shelter, cadet," Hayes said, but there was no heat in her words. She moved to stand beside Kira, staring out at the enemy fleet. "So should you," Hayes's mouth twitched. "Probably." They stood in silence for a moment, watching as the Zerathian ships tightened their formation. Energy signatures bloomed across Kira's vision, weapons charging. "They're going to attack," Kira said quietly. "Yes." "Can the station defend itself?" Hayes was quiet for a long moment. The defensive grid was designed to repel pirates and small raiding parties, not a full battle fleet. She paused. "We've sent a distress signal. Help is coming, but it'll take hours, maybe days. And Zenith 7 won't last that long." "No, it won't." Kira's jaw tightened. "Then we need to buy time." Hayes turned to look at her, really look at her, and something shifted in her expression. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "You know what they call us, don't you? Out there in the galaxy. What the other species whisper when they think we can't hear. Deathworlders," Kira said. "Deathworlders," Hayes echoed. "Because Earth tried to kill us for millions of years and we refused to die. Because we evolved in gravity that would crush half the species in this station. Because our immune systems treat biological warfare like a minor inconvenience. Because we are, by every measurable standard, absolutely terrifying." "Your point?" Hayes's smile was sharp enough to cut. "My point, cadet, is that those Zerathian bastards are about to learn why you don't invade a station with humans on it." The first weapon, and the deck shuddered beneath their feet. Alarms wailed. The lights flickered. Kira felt something inside her chest, something she'd been keeping carefully contained since the moment she'd arrived at this station. The other students were fragile. The professors were cautious. Everyone walked on eggshells around her, afraid she might snap, might lash out, might prove every terrible stereotype about humans true. She'd been so careful, so controlled, but now the second? "Follow me. We're going to show these xenocidal pricks what happens when you pick a fight with Earth." Kira took the weapon. It was heavy, solid, real. Her fingers wrapped around the grip like they'd been made for it. More impacts rocked the station. The shields were failing. Somewhere in the distance, metal screamed as hull plates buckled. "Commander," Kira said as they moved toward the exit. "I should probably mention I've never actually fired a gun before." Hayes laughed, wild and fierce. "Don't worry, humans are natural-born killers, Chin. It's in your blood. You'll figure it out." These people was to stop the attack. They reached an emergency lift. Hayes jammed her security card into the reader and the doors hissed open. "Where are we going?" Kira demanded as they descended. "Hangar Bay. The station has a small complement of defense fighters, but they're not armed." Not officially. Not officially." Hayes's grin was vicious. "I may have acquired certain weapon systems during my time in the Navy. Kept them in storage. Just in case." "You smuggled military-grade weapons onto an educational station." "Yep. That's incredibly illegal. Also incredibly useful right now, wouldn't you say?" Kira couldn't argue with that. The lift doors opened onto chaos. The hangar bay was enormous, designed to accommodate everything from cargo haulers to diplomatic shuttles. Right now it was filling with smoke, and panicked personnel. A Zerathian breaching pod had punched through the outer hull, and armored soldiers were pouring out, weapons blazing. Hayes drew her sidearm and fired 3 shots, so fast they sounded like one. A Zerathian breaching pod had punched through the outer hull, and armored soldiers were pouring out, weapons blazing. Hayes drew her sidearm and fired 3 shots, so fast they sounded like one. 3 Zerathian soldiers dropped. Holes burned through their helmets. "Move!" Hayes shouted. They sprinted across the bay, using cargo containers for cover as energy bolts sizzled past them. Kira's heart was trying to pound its way out of her chest, but her hands were steady, almost eerily steady. A Zerathian soldier stepped out from behind a shuttle, weapon raised. Kira didn't think. She raised her sidearm and pulled the trigger. The recoil surprised her. The accuracy didn't. The shot took the soldier square in the chest and he went down hard. Hayes glanced at her. "Not bad for a first-timer. Thanks, I'm terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you alive." They reached a secured storage unit at the far end of the bay. Hayes pressed her palm against the biometric lock and the door slid open, revealing racks of weapons, ammunition, and what looked like modified fighter armaments. "Grab what you can carry," Hayes ordered. "We're loading up 2 fighters, and we're going out there, into space, against a full battle fleet. You got a better idea?" Kira looked at the weapons, then back toward the hangar where more Zerathian soldiers were establishing a beachhead. She thought about Mira, terrified and hiding in a shelter, about Professor Velis and his insufferable lectures, about 200 students who were just trying to learn and grow and maybe make the galaxy a little bit better. "No," she said. "I really don't." They loaded the fighters in 4 minutes flat, working with a synchronization that felt almost supernatural. Maybe it was adrenaline. Maybe it was something deeper, some shared human instinct for violence that the rest of the galaxy feared. Kira climbed into the cockpit of a sleek Raven-class fighter, her hands finding the controls with surprising ease. The neural interface synced with her implant, and suddenly the ship felt like an extension of her body. "You ever flown before?" Hayes asked over the comm. "Simulator training. Nothing real." "Well, congratulations on your graduation. Try not to die." The hangar doors were damaged, stuck half open. Hayes blasted them the rest of the way with her fighter's forward guns, and then they were launching, shooting out into the black. Space combat was nothing like the simulators. It was faster, more disorienting, more viscerally terrifying. Zerathian fighters swarmed around them immediately, weapons blazing. Kira banked hard, instinct guiding her, and felt laser fire miss her hull by meters. She returned fire, watched with grim satisfaction as one of the enemy fighters exploded into debris. "Not bad, Chen," Hayes shouted. "Stick with me." They dove toward the Zerathian capital ship, 2 tiny fighters against a vessel the size of a city block. It was suicide. It was insane. It was working. The Zerathians hadn't expected resistance. Their fighters were scrambling to intercept, but Hayes and Kira were already past them, streaking toward the capital ship's exposed underbelly. "Targeting the reactor core," Hayes said, her voice tight with concentration. "When I give the signal, fire everything you've got." Kira's hands tightened on the controls. "Copy that." They were so close now she could see individual hull plates, could see crew members moving behind reinforced windows. "Now!" Hayes screamed. Kira fired. Every weapon, every missile, everything. The capital ship's reactor didn't just explode. It tore itself apart from the inside out, a chain reaction of catastrophic failures that turned the entire vessel into a miniature sun. The shockwave hit Kira's fighter like a physical blow, sending her spinning end over end. Alarms shrieked. Her vision went white. When her sight cleared, the Zerathian fleet was in full retreat, scattering like startled fish. "Hayes?" Kira gasped. "Commander Hayes, do you copy?" Static. Then, faint and crackling. "I copy." Still alive. Mostly. Kira let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. They'd done it. Against all odds, against every reasonable expectation, they'd actually done it. She guided her damaged fighter back toward Zenith 7, watching as station security moved to secure the hangar bay as medical teams rushed to help the wounded. She'd saved them. She'd actually saved them. The fighter touched down roughly, and Kira practically fell out of the cockpit. Her legs were shaking. Her hands were shaking. Everything was shaking. Hayes appeared beside her, blood running down one side of her face from a cut above her eye, grinning like a maniac. "Welcome to the war, cadet," she said. Kira opened her mouth to respond. That's when the second invasion fleet dropped out of warp, twice the size of the first, and every weapon trained on the station. The comm systems exploded with panicked voices. Station command was shouting evacuation protocols. Defense coordinators were screaming about insufficient firepower. Someone was praying in a language Kira didn't recognize. Commander Hayes grabbed Kira's shoulder hard enough to bruise. "You get back in that fighter. Now, they'll slaughter us," Kira said, but she was already moving. Her body had disconnected from her brain, running on pure survival instinct. There's no way two fighters can take on that many ships. Then we don't take them on. We buy time. Hayes was climbing back into her cockpit, blood still streaming down her face. The distress signal went out. Galactic Defense Forces en route. We just need to keep this station in one piece until they arrive. How long? 40 minutes. 40 minutes. An eternity in combat. A blink in any other context. Kira sealed herself into her fighter, felt the neural interface reconnect. The ship's systems were damaged but functional. Barely, she had maybe 60% weapon capacity, and the shields were operating at a fraction of their normal strength. Through the cockpit canopy, she watched the second Zarathian fleet arrange itself in an attack formation. These ships were larger, more heavily armed. The smaller craft that had retreated earlier were regrouping with them, doubling their fighter complement. "They're really committed to destroying this place," Kira muttered. "Zenith 7 is the premier research and education facility in this sector," Hayes replied through the comm. 40 species represented, thousands of the brightest minds in the galaxy. They're not trying to conquer it, Chen. They're trying to send a message. What message? That the galactic community is weak, that we can't protect our own, that unity is a fantasy. His voice went cold. The Zarathians have been isolationists for 3 centuries. Now they're making a play for dominance, and this is their opening move. The lead Zarathian vessel powered up its main cannon. Energy readings spiked across Kira's display, climbing higher and higher. "That's a planetary assault weapon," Hayes said quietly. "One shot will crack this station like an egg. Then we stop them from firing." "With what?" Harsh language. Kora's mind raced. 2 fighters. Damaged fighters. Against a fleet that could atomize them without effort. The math was impossible. The situation was hopeless. Humans specialized in hopeless. "Commander, what's the one thing every species in the galaxy agrees about humans?" Hayes was silent for a moment. Then she laughed, sharp and bitter. "That we're insane." "Exactly. So let's prove them right." Kira opened a channel to the Zarathian fleet. She had no idea if they'd even listen, but she had to try. "Zarathian vessels. This is Cadet Kira Chen of Earth. You are in violation of galactic community law. Withdraw immediately or face consequences." The response came 30 seconds later, translated through her ship's computer. The voice was cold, mechanical, utterly without mercy. "Earth, the species that believes itself equal to civilizations millennia old. You are irrelevant. Your warning is irrelevant. Prepare for annihilation." "Irrelevant," Kira repeated. "That's their mistake right there." She plotted a course directly toward the lead vessel, the one charging its planet killer. "Commander, I need you to hit their sensor array. Blind them. Just for a few seconds." "And then what?" "Then I'm going to do something incredibly stupid." "Kira, wait." But Kira was already accelerating, pushing her damaged fighter to maximum burn. The Zarathian fleet opened fire, and space around her became a lattice of death. Energy bolts and missiles filled the void, each one capable of vaporizing her ship. She dodged. Not through skill, not through training, through something deeper, something her body knew before her mind caught up. Earth gravity was crushing compared to most worlds. Earth predators had been fast and deadly. Humans had survived by being faster, smarter, more adaptable. Kira's ancestors had dodged saber-toothed cats and cave bears. These energy bolts were just bigger teeth. Hayes' fighter streaked past, weapons blazing, and the Zarathian flagship's sensor array exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. For exactly 4.3 seconds, the massive ship was blind. Kira used every one of those seconds. She dove beneath the flagship's ventral hull, so close she could have reached out and touched the metal if not for the canopy. Targeting systems locked onto the charging weapon's power coupling, the one weak point in its heavily armored structure. She fired everything. Missiles, lasers, kinetic rounds, everything. The coupling ruptured, Energy meant for the station backfed into the weapon itself, and Kira was already pulling away, pushing her fighter past its maximum stress tolerances. The Zarathian flagship's main weapon exploded. Not the controlled detonation of a reactor breach, but a chaotic, violent failure that tore through internal systems like a cancer. Secondary explosions rippled across the hull. The ship began listing, life support failing, crew evacuating in escape pods. The rest of the fleet hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough. That's 2 capital ships, you arrogant bastards. Hayes snarled over the comm. You want a third? Fighters retreating to defensive positions. But they didn't leave. They regrouped, recalculated, prepared for a second assault. Kira's fighter limped back toward the station, systems failing one by one. Red lights covered her dashboard. The neural interface was screaming warnings directly into her brain. Chen, your ship's falling apart, Hayes said. I noticed. Get back to the hangar. You're done. Not yet, because she'd seen something. A pattern in the Zarathian formation. A gap in their defensive screen. And 37 minutes left until reinforcements arrived. She changed course, vectoring not toward the station but toward the enemy fleet's left flank. 3 heavy cruisers hung there, weapons charging, prepared to pound Zenith 7 into scrap metal. Kira, what are you doing? Buying time. You'll die, probably. She thought about Mira hiding in some shelter, wondering if her sarcastic human friend was still alive. About her brother back on Earth, who'd cried when she left for the academy. About Professor Velis and his boring lectures that she'd never complain about again if she survived this. About the 200 students who deserved to live. Her fighter was screaming now, every system on the verge of catastrophic failure. She aimed for the gap between the cruisers, threading the needle at speeds that would turn her into paste if she hit anything solid. The Zarathians saw her coming. They fired. She dodged. Not all of it. One energy bolt clipped her starboard. Her fighter began spiraling, centrifugal force trying to pull her apart. Kira roared, fighting the controls, forcing the dying ship to obey her will. She wasn't religious, but in that moment she prayed to whatever gods might listen. Human gods. Alien gods. The cold mathematics of physics itself. The fighter stabilized. Barely. She was inside their formation now, past their heaviest defenses, and she had exactly 1 missile left. 1 shot. 1 chance. The lead cruiser's bridge was directly ahead, command staff visible through reinforced windows. She could see their faces. Alien features twisted in shock and rage. They hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected someone to be this reckless, this desperate. This was relatively small, contained, but it severed the cruiser's command structure. Without leadership, its automated systems went into defensive mode. Weapons powering down, engines reducing to station-keeping burns. The other 2 cruisers broke formation, scrambling to compensate, and then the cavalry arrived. Warp signatures bloomed across Kira's sensors. Massive signatures. The Galactic Defense Force dropping into real space in perfect formation. 12 dreadnoughts. 50 destroyers. Hundreds of fighters. The Zarathian fleet didn't wait to engage. They jumped to warp in seconds, abandoning their damaged ships, fleeing into the deep black. Kira's fighter finally gave up the ghost. Systems died. Life support failed. She was coasting now, drifting in vacuum, trapped in a metal coffin. Chen. Hayes' voice crackled through the dying comm system. Kira, respond. She tried. Her mouth wouldn't work. Everything hurt. She was pretty sure she had at least 3 broken ribs and possibly a concussion. The cockpit was getting cold. Really cold. Rescue teams are en route, Hayes was saying, but her voice sounded distant. Hang on, cadet. That's an order. Hang on. Kira's eyes drifted closed. She'd done it. They'd won. Everyone would be okay. That was good. That was enough. When she woke up, she was in medical bay, wrapped in more bandages than she'd thought possible. Every breath hurt. Moving was out of the question. But she was alive. Mira was sitting beside her bed, all 4 hands wringing together nervously. When she saw Kira's eyes open, she made a sound that the translator rendered as relieved sobbing. You complete idiot, Mira said, which wasn't what Kira expected. You beautiful, insane, terrifying idiot. Hey, Kira croaked. I saved everyone. Yes, by nearly dying multiple times. Mira leaned forward, antenna trembling. Every species in this station is talking about you. About Commander Hayes. About what humans can do when threatened. Are they scared? absolutely terrified, and also grateful. It is a confusing combination. Kira managed a weak laugh that turned into a cough. Where's Hayes? Giving reports to Galactic Command. She has been arguing with them for 6 hours about military protocols and rules of engagement. I believe she may have used several Earth profanities that the translators cannot process. That sounds like her. The door slid open and Professor Velis entered, moving with the careful dignity of his species. He stopped at the foot of Kira's bed, 3 eyes studying her. Miss Chen, he said formally, I have been asked to deliver a message from the Academy Council. Here it comes, Kira thought. Expulsion for recklessness, criminal charges for taking military action, deportation back to Earth. The Council wishes to extend their deepest gratitude for your actions during the attack, Velis continued. Furthermore, they have unanimously voted to create a new position, Head of Emergency Response and Combat Protocols. The position is yours, should you choose to accept it. Kira stared. I'm a student. I split a desk in half this morning because I got startled. Yes, Velis said, and his tone was almost warm. And when the alarm sounded, when everyone else panicked, you acted. You understood that violence, controlled and directed, is sometimes the only answer to violence. The galaxy needs individuals who understand this, individuals who can protect the rest of us when negotiation fails. He paused, then added more quietly, I apologize, Miss Chen, for treating you as a potential danger rather than a potential defender. It was small-minded of me. It's okay, Kira said. I kind of am a danger to our enemies. Yes, we are beginning to appreciate the distinction. After he left, Mira squeezed Kira's hand gently. So, you are famous now. The human who saved Zenith 7. How does it feel? Painful, Kira admitted. Everything hurts. That is very human of you. To save everyone and then complain about the consequences. Complaining is also very human. This is true. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Through the medical bay window, Kira could see Zenith 7's curve, could see repair crews already working on the damaged sections. Life continuing. Learning continuing. Because of what she'd done, because of what Hayes had done. Because humans, when pushed back harder. Commander Hayes appeared in the doorway several hours later, looking exhausted but satisfied. She'd cleaned up, changed uniforms, and the cut above her eye was sealed with medical adhesive. Cadet Chen, she said formally. Then she grinned. Or should I say, Head of Emergency Response. I haven't accepted yet. You will? Hayes pulled up a chair, sitting with the careful posture of someone whose body had also been through hell. Because you're a fighter, Kira. Because when the alarm sounded and everyone else ran toward safety, you ran toward the fight. That's not training. Maybe it's a bad instinct. Maybe. But it's the instinct that kept humanity alive on Earth. And it's the instinct that's going to keep the galactic community alive now. Kira thought about that. About her broken desk and her reputation and the weight of expectation that had been crushing her since she arrived at this station. About how in the moment of actual crisis that weight had transformed into purpose. The galaxy's still afraid of us, she said. Good. Let them be afraid. Fear keeps people honest. Hayes leaned back, but they're also grateful. And gratitude builds trust. And trust, given enough time, builds understanding. You sound optimistic. I sound realistic. Humans aren't saints, Kira. We're violent, aggressive, emotionally unstable deathworlders from a nightmare planet. But we're also loyal, courageous, and we don't abandon our own. The galaxy needs to learn that we're both the monster under the bed and the guardian at the door, sometimes simultaneously. Kira looked at her hands, at the bandages covering knuckles that had gripped a fighter's controls so hard she'd bruised bone, at fingers that had pulled a trigger without hesitation when lives were at stake. I split my desk in half, she said quietly, just from grabbing it when the alarm went off. I know. It's already a meme on the station network. Someone made an animation. Oh God, it's actually pretty funny, you should see it. Despite everything. Kira laughed. It hurt, but it was worth it. The door opened again and a junior medical officer entered. Some species Kira didn't recognize, holding a datapad. Excuse me, Head Chen, there are 63 media requests for interviews, 27 academic journals asking for articles, and apparently the entire freshman class wants your autograph. Kira looked at Hayes helplessly. Hayes was trying not to laugh. Tell them, Kira said carefully, that I'm just a student who got lucky. and that any credit belongs to Commander Hayes as much as me. Already told them that. Hayes said. They didn't believe me. Humans apparently make good heroes, or good monsters. Like I said, sometimes both. The medical officer left, looking vaguely confused by human humor. Mira had fallen asleep in her chair, exhausted by stress and relief. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly past, infinite and ancient. Kira closed her eyes, letting exhaustion pull her back towards sleep. She dreamed of Earth, of rain and gravity, and a world that had tried so hard to kill her species. She dreamed of space combat and enemy fleets, and the cold mathematics of survival. She dreamed of her desk splitting beneath her fingers, to be contained or controlled or feared, but that she was strong, that humanity was strong, that when the alarm sounded and the invasion came and the galaxy needed protection, humans would be there, raking desks, raking enemy ships, breaking expectations, being exactly what they'd always been. Survivors, fighters, heroes and monsters and everything in between. When she woke again, Zenith 7 was whole, the students were returning to class, and Professor Velis was posting new lecture notes about applied combat physics. Kira smiled, closed her eyes, and let herself rest. The galaxy could wait. She'd already saved it once today. Tomorrow, when the alarm inevitably sounded again, she'd save it again. That's what humans did. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.
Ambassador Kreldar of the Veshan Empire stood before the United Nations Assembly, his four arms spread wide in what his species considered a gesture of diplomatic superiority. The translation device around his neck crackled to life. "Humans," he began, his voice dripping with condescension, "we have come to offer you a demonstration of true apex predation. You speak of your Earth as a death world, but you have never witnessed the glory of Avrexian's Shadow Stalker." Dr. Michael Peterson, the UN Xenobiology liaison, leaned forward in his seat. "Ambassador, I'm not sure this is necessary. Our assessments show." Silence. Kreldar's neck frills flared purple. "Your species is young and naive. You domesticated wolves and called them companions. You live alongside creatures you call dangerous, with no concept of what true predators are capable of. The Shadow Stalker has terrorized a dozen worlds. It is why the Veshan Empire rules the Outer Rim. No species has ever tamed one." The holographic display behind him showed a creature that made the audience gasp. 8 feet of pure muscle, covered in obsidian scales that seemed to absorb light. 6 eyes glowed crimson above a jaw filled with serrated teeth. Its claws were like curved daggers, and a barbed tail swished menacingly behind it. "This," Kreldar announced proudly, "is what conquered fear looks like." Michael exchanged glances with his colleague, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, who was trying hard not to smile. "Ambassador," she said carefully, "perhaps we should conduct this demonstration in a controlled environment first." "You doubt the containment field?" Kreldar's translator somehow conveyed his sneer. "The Shadow Stalker is perfectly restrained. Observe its magic." And despair at your own inadequacy. The creature materialized in the center of the assembly hall within a shimmering energy barrier. It was indeed impressive, standing on 4 powerful legs, its serpentine neck swiveling to assess the gathered humans. A low growl rumbled from its chest, causing several diplomats to shift uncomfortably in their seats. "On my world," Kreldar continued, "we use these magnificent beasts to maintain order. One Shadow Stalker can pacify an entire They are intelligent, ruthless, and utterly unbreakable. You humans have nothing that compares. That's when it happened. A small, orange tabby cat had somehow wandered into the assembly hall, probably from the building's cafeteria where it was known to beg for food. Of the moment. He was simply annoyed that his afternoon nap had been disturbed by all this mail puffed up to twice its normal size. With the fury of a creature that absolutely did not appreciate this stranger in his territory. The Shadow Stalker's 6 eyes went wide. It had never encountered anything like this before. The small creature showed no fear, no submission, only pure, distilled rage at the audacity of this intruder. Mr. Whiskers threw himself at the containment field, hissing and spitting, his tiny paws swiping at the barrier. The Shadow Stalker took a step back. The assembly hall went silent. Kreldhar's neck frills turned from purple to a sickly gray. "This is impossible," he whispered. Michael stood up, a grin spreading across his face. "Ambassador, allow me to introduce you to Felis catus, the common house cat. Apex predator of Earth, responsible for the extinction of dozens of species, and possessor of exactly 0 concerns about the size of its opponent." Rebecca was already pulling up data on her tablet. "Cats domesticated themselves, Ambassador. They decided we were useful and moved in. We didn't tame them. Nobody tames a cat. They simply tolerate us when it suits them." Mr. Whiskers continued his assault on the containment field, his green eyes locked on the Shadow Stalker with murderous intent. The alien predator, meanwhile, had backed into the far corner of its enclosure, its barbed tail tucked between its legs, making a sound that could only be described as a whimper. "Your Shadow Stalker," Michael continued, clearly enjoying himself now, "is a pack hunter, isn't it? Social hierarchy, submission displays, territorial negotiations. Am I right?" Kreldhar nodded mutely, unable to look away from the spectacle. "Cats don't negotiate," Rebecca explained. "They don't submit. They don't care about your size, your weapons, or your reputation. You're either useful, irrelevant, or prey. And right now, your apex predator has been categorized as prey by an animal that weighs less than some of the rodents it hunts." A junior diplomat from Brazil carefully scooped up Mr. Whiskers, who continued to growl and stare at the Shadow Stalker even as he was carried away. The Shadow Stalker didn't move from its corner until the cat was completely gone from sight. Kreldhar's 4 arms hung limply at his sides. We, the Empire will need to reassess." Michael walked over to the shaken ambassador. "Here's what I think happened, Ambassador. Your species evolved on a world without small, obligate carnivores. Your predators are big, scary, and social. They understand dominance and submission. But cats? Cats are what we call perfect killing machines. Evolution spent millions of years optimizing them for one thing, hunting. They've got night vision, motion tracking, retractable claws, flexible spines, and absolutely no sense of self-preservation when something threatens their territory. And you live with these creatures?" Kreldhar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We live with them, we feed them, we clean up after them, and we consider ourselves lucky when they let us pet them," Rebecca said cheerfully. "We also live with dogs that can bite through bone, snakes with venom that can kill in minutes, spiders, bears, crocodiles, and sharks. Earth is a death world, Ambassador. We tried to tell you." The Shadow Stalker was hastily teleported back to the Veshan ship. The containment field was deactivated. Kreldhar stood in the center of the now empty space, looking thoroughly defeated. "The Veshan Empire," he said slowly, "would like to open formal negotiations regarding defensive pacts and military training exchanges." Michael smiled and extended his hand. "Now you're talking our language, Ambassador. Welcome to Earth. Just, watch out for the cats." Later that evening, Mr. Whiskers was of money and effort to bring a special demon from a distant death world just to terrify these humans. Attention, cadets. Vrax's voice boomed through the speakers, echoing off the metallic walls. Today, you will face the true meaning of fear. In the galaxy, there are planets where life is a constant battle. We have captured a legend. It does not think, it only kills. It has no mercy, and it has never been tamed by any civilization. The alien cadets began to whisper nervously. Some species with sensitive hearing covered their ears, while others with multiple eyes looked around frantically, trying to see where the danger would come from. At the far end of the arena, two massive titanium doors began to move. The sound was terrifying, a deep, metallic groan that made the floor vibrate. Thick, white smoke started to pour out from the dark tunnel behind the doors. The Krell instructors, who usually acted very brave, moved back quickly. They stepped behind thick energy shields and raised their heavy pulse rifles. They looked like they were preparing for a war. The message was clear: whatever was behind those doors was so dangerous that even the teachers were afraid. The alien cadets started to panic, scrambling over each other to get to the higher seats, away from the arena floor. Behold! Vrax shouted, his voice full of excitement. The apex predator of Earth. The king of the Golden Plains. Out of the smoke, a heavy, rhythmic thud could be heard. Thump. 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 Then, a massive shape appeared. It was a lion. Its golden fur glowed under the bright artificial lights of the Academy. It was huge, much larger than the lions seen on Earth today, a prime example of its species. Its muscles rippled under its skin with every step. The most striking part was its mane, a thick, dark crown of hair that made it look regal and terrifying at the same time. Its golden eyes, so powerful that the glass in the observation windows rattled. It was a deep, bone-shaking sound that touched a primal fear in every living being in the room. To the aliens, this was the sound of death. Several cadets screamed and ran for the exits. One four-armed alien fainted on the spot. Even the Krell behind the shields flinched, their hands shaking on their weapons. They expected the humans to be the first to cry or beg for help. However, in the middle of this chaos, there was one person who didn't move. Cadet Leo, a young human with a calm face, sat perfectly still in his seat. He wasn't reaching for a gun, and he wasn't trying to hide. While the rest of the galaxy was losing its mind in terror, Leo simply blinked. He looked at the massive lion with a strange expression. It wasn't fear. It was something else, something like curiosity or even affection. He watched the lion as if he were watching a beautiful sunset rather than a killing machine. The lion turned its massive head and locked eyes with Leo. The room suddenly went quiet as the beast began to walk toward the human. The alien cadets watched in horror, thinking they were about to see Leo get torn to pieces. Commander Vrax leaned forward, a smile on his face, waiting for the weak human to finally show his cowardice. The giant predator was now only a few feet away from Leo, its hot breath visible in the air. The most dangerous hunter in the galaxy stood face to face with the soft human. The silence in the hall was total, and everyone held their breath, waiting for the first drop of blood to fall. The silence in the training hall was so heavy it felt like it could crush the cadets. Every alien eye was fixed on the scene below. The giant lion, a creature of pure muscle and golden fur, was now only 3 feet away from Leo. It lowered its head, its shoulders bunching up as if it were preparing to spring. A low, rumbling growl started deep in its chest, a sound that felt like a small earthquake vibrating through the floor tiles. The Krell instructors gripped their energy rifles tighter. Commander Vrax had a finger. Instead of jumping back or reaching for a hidden knife, he slowly stood up from his seat. He didn't move fast, because fast movements startle predators. He moved with a calm grace that seemed impossible for someone facing certain death. Leo looked directly into the lion's golden eyes, not with a challenge, but with a strange kind of recognition. The other cadets were whispering in terror, "He's insane. He's going to be eaten." Even the bravest alien warriors were shaking, their scales turning pale with fear. They couldn't understand why this human was standing his ground without a weapon. Then, Leo made a sound. It wasn't a scream or a shout. It was a soft, rhythmic clicking sound with his tongue, followed by a low, soothing whistle. The lion stopped growling. Its ears, which had been flattened against its head, suddenly flicked forward. The massive beast tilted its head to the side, looking confused. This wasn't how prey was supposed to act. Prey was supposed to run, to smell of fear, and to make high-pitched noises. But this human smelled of home. To the lion, the scent of a human was tied to thousands of years of shared history on the plains of Earth. Leo reached out his hand. The entire room gasped. Some aliens actually covered their eyes, not wanting to see the human's arm get ripped off. Leo kept his hand flat and lowered, moving it slowly toward the lion's wet nose. "Hey there, big guy," Leo whispered. His voice was steady and warm, echoing slightly in the silent hall. "You're a long way from the savannah, aren't you? It's okay. I'm a friend." The lion huffed, a massive burst of air blowing Leo's hair back. It stepped even closer, its giant paws making no sound on the floor. It sniffed Leo's hand, its whiskers twitching against his skin. Suddenly, the lion did something that made Commander Vrax drop his remote control. The beast didn't open its jaws to bite. Instead, it closed its eyes and rubbed its massive head against Leo's chest. The force of